Kiri Masters is the rare person who can stare directly into the retail media multiverse and somehow come back with coherent sentences. While 250 RMNs fight over scraps and Amazon and Walmart eat the buffet, she's the one mapping the chaos, calling out the burnout, and saying the quiet part out loud. Half this industry is held together with buzzwords and wishful thinking. Today we pull her into the adtech show and ask the only question that matters. What happens when agentic commerce stops being theory and starts taking everyone's lunch?
I'm Pesach Lattin, host of the adtech show, where we make sense of the madness in adtech so you don't have to. Today I'm talking with Kiri Masters, the force behind the Retail Media Breakfast Club, founder, writer, and probably the only person to explain retail media without needing a therapist afterwards. First of all, Kiri, how are you doing? And not the polite LinkedIn find, but the real version that comes after 10 back-to-back Zoom calls about attribution dashboards that no one actually believes in.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I take 2 really long breaks throughout the year. That's how I've planned my content schedule, because I just collapse about every 5 months because of the pace of things. There's so much going on, and to credibly sort of cover everything is extremely exhausting.
Yeah, when Americans hear a holiday, it sounds really foreign to us, but the rest of the world actually takes holidays and vacations, I hear.
Yes, we do. That's the dirty little secret of the rest of the world and the metric system.
Retail media's expanding universe is currently 250 retail media networks worldwide, data silos, and 85% of spend dominated by Amazon, Walmart, and it contains consistent noise. You report on it daily, so you know emotional burnout and insight fatigue are real. You talk a lot about the space being fragmented. Do you mean that emotionally?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I think that's definitely the case. We have a huge problem in retail media, which is concentration. A good 70-80% of all retail media ad spend goes to Amazon and Walmart. And that means that 250 retailers that you mentioned are kind of fighting over the scraps. And I think that there is a real sort of identity crisis amongst a lot of these retailers, because they are trying to, put on a brave face, talk about the things that they think media buyers care about. And it's really hard to break through against massive competitors like that have a lot of resources, that really kind of built all of the expectations around retail media, around it being super high legibility with metrics, and every dollar that you spend needs to have so many metrics and be completely visible across different stages of the buying journey. And that's the expectation that all of these retailers have come into. Frankly, a lot of them are unable to deliver on that because they don't have the internal buy-in within their organizations. They don't have the resources that they need, and they don't have the talent that they need.
If last touch attribution worked, your waiter would get full credit for the meal. We make sure the chef gets credit too. Incremental.
So is watching this daily roller coaster change your own thinking? Are you just more optimistic, or maybe just more caffeinated?
It certainly made me think a lot more about my own buying habits and what influences my decisions as a consumer. As you get into it, there's a lot of purchases that we do online, but there's also a ton that we do in the store as well. And that's certainly an emerging area for a lot of retailers, that they're thinking about, what does our in-store retail media footprint look like for those retailers that have a very large footprint, or a regularly visiting customer, or even someone like a Best Buy. A lot of these retailers are really leaning into in-store as a differentiator. For me personally, I don't know if this is just a me thing, but when I walk into a store, I'm sort of like oblivious to any in-store advertising that happens. So I'm in the process of trying to retrain myself to look for screens and look for things like that. And maybe it's all subconsciously affecting me in some level, but as the discussion of in-store retail media heats up, I'm certainly trying to look out for that a little bit more mindfully as a consumer.
So if you could delete one buzzword from every retail media deck tomorrow, what would it be?
Definitely AI enabled. I know that we're going to talk about agentic commerce,
right?
Which is something different, but I get a lot of pitches. I write, for various publications. I have my own publications, so I get pitches, a lot of pitches. And everything is AI enabled, agentic, and it's just like, can you just tell me what you actually do? What is the real news? Because it's really putting lipstick on a pig a lot of the time, as far as I can tell, just trying to create something buzzy that doesn't exist.
I swear I saw a pregnancy test that was AI enabled the other day.
Eric Troutman, the czar of the TCPA, isn't just the guy you call when your phone rings too much. He's the guy you must call. Need to navigate the legal minefield of robocalls, texts, and telemarketing nightmares? Troutman doesn't just give you advice. He hands you a roadmap, a compass, and a do not press this button sign. Practical? Yes. Actionable? Absolutely. And if you're not calling him first, let's be honest, you're probably making a mistake.
Oh, interesting.
Not sure if I really did, but everything says AI now.
My breakfast is AI enabled. I don't know. That's, yeah.
So if you were running a new retail media network from scratch with no legacy baggage, what's the first thing you'd ban?
Ooh, that's a good one. What would I ban?
And you can't say sales calls from adtech vendors.
No, well, actually, that's a really good point. Something that I get on a soapbox on a lot is about retail media networks being super secretive about their technology and what does their tech stack look like. And to me, coming from the media buying side, it blows my mind because as a media buyer, I would like to feel confident that the channel that I'm buying media through is like, they have thought about the tech stack and they're stewarding my ad dollars in the right way and putting some effort and thought into the reporting, the relevance, the ad serving. And you would be shocked how few retailers are prepared to talk about how their tech stack is built. And I have written about this in the past. There's a few reasons for it, but a lot of them they don't talk about it because they know that it's not optimal and they don't have the buy-in internally to invest in technology. So if I was running a retail media platform today, I would ban all this secrecy around what we're doing, and I would get out there and talk to the market publicly about our priorities, about our technology, about why we're different.
You think the creative chaos is necessary for creative destruction, or are we just all politely rearranging deck chairs on a very expensive ship?
I don't typically get into the discussion of creativity, and that might seem like a cop-out to some people, but I feel like it is a necessary part of the equation. To me, retail media, of course, it's a peanut butter and jelly kind of situation. You need to have the good creative to create a good campaign, and you need really great targeting to run an excellent creative campaign. So I don't think you can have one without the other. But the genius of retail media is in the targeting and reach. So to me, that's sort of the area that I wade into most frequently, and I don't pretend to be a creative commentator on the internet.
So you said that agentic commerce is an existential threat to retail media. That's not just spicy, that's ghost pepper on the tongue hot. Paint me your nightmare scenario. What happens when the bots stop needing us?
Okay, so there's like 3 different buckets of retail media. One is on-site retail media on the website or on the app. Off-site retail media is sort of less profitable than that, but that's the audience extension capabilities that retailers sort of sell onto the trade desk and advertisers can activate against on the open web, CTV, social, etc. And then finally, there is in-store retail media that can be like the new programmatic digital displays, and then sort of in a separate bucket largely is traditional shopper marketing displays, cardboard displays, shelf displays, things like that. So in an agentic commerce future where an agent is doing some part or all of our shopping journey for us, we are not going to a website to place an order. So that puts at risk the on-site retail media world. It also puts at risk the off-site retail media world because now, let's say ChatGPT knows what I ordered, what I searched for, what I've been researching. They now have this first-party data with all the signals and the purchase confirmation that a retailer like a Walmart or a Kroger had in the past as an exclusive data stream. So now a retailer isn't the only entity that has that transaction record and those purchase signals. Now we also have ChatGPT that has that. So that immediately erodes the exclusivity moat that these retailers had on their audience data. And so that offsite retail media revenue, which is around about 40% profit margin for those retailers, that is doesn't completely go away, but it's now much less exclusive, and they're going to be able to charge a lot less for it. And then ironically, that third bucket, the in-store retail media, people are still going to go to stores. Don't get me wrong. I still go to the store. I plan to still go to the store for some of my purchases in the future. That will be quite resilient. So that is whether you believe in agentic commerce fully replacing every e-commerce journey that we have. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but even an agent replacing some of those journeys, some of the way through that journey, those two big buckets of retail media ad spend are at risk.
So what company do you think is closest to unleashing this agentic doomsday? Is it Amazon, Shopify, or some AI lab in WeWork? And I know WeWork's bankrupt, but there's probably still training AI on kombucha.
The one that I think is the most forward-thinking on this as a retailer is actually Walmart. Walmart just philosophically is opening the doors to the agentic future. They have talked about, their CTO has talked about enabling agent-to-agent communications. Doug McMillon, the CEO, has been very optimistic about agentic shopping and talking about how the current path to purchase is not as personalized and is not as helpful as it could be in the future, and that they're planning for a future where shopping is more personalized. Shopping is multimodal. It's not just text and chat based. So I actually think Walmart is the one that is most aggressively pursuing this agentic commerce future.
So what happens to brand storytelling when agents optimize for price and speed?
I'll separate this out into two different buckets. One is retailers and one is brands. So brands are fair weather friends. They will move their ad spend wherever it's going to get the most bang for their buck. And if that means moving it out of retail media into ChatGPT or Perplexity or wherever a customer is dwelling, researching, buying, they're going to move their ad spend there without a whole lot of loyalty to where it was once spent before. So we saw this with retail media. Ad spend on social channels was becoming very expensive. There was less data coming through, and a lot of brands just sort of picked out their meta ad spend and moved it over to Amazon because they saw a really good return and saw a really big benefit from that. And there is absolutely nothing stopping those same brands from moving their ad spend over to LLMs if they're actually seeing a really good return on that. So that's what I think is going to happen for brands once the early results start coming out for advertising within LLMs. I think we could see a pretty swift rebalancing to those platforms. And then for retailers, I think this is a common concern that I hear is, well, this is all just going to become a race to the bottom. If I'm searching for Tylenol and I'm using ChatGPT to help me find Tylenol, I'm immediately and always going to go to the lowest price vendor for that. And that is not the case. Even the way that we shop today is based on so many factors beyond just price. It's based on convenience. I know I'm going to drive past the CVS on the way to pick up my kids from school. I'm just going to pop in there and get it now that I've seen that they have it in stock at that store. Or,
well, if you search for Tylenol versus acetaminophen, that's obviously, you just mentioned some obviously brand loyalty right there.
Right. Yes. And I think the thing for a retailer that they're concerned about is that everything that they sell is going to be analyzed on a price dimension, and that's not the case. As consumers, we're looking for different factors. We're looking for convenience. We might have a loyalty to a certain retailer. We might do a lot of stock up trips at a Costco and want to transact there. So I think for a retailer, it's re-examining what is your USP as a retailer? What does that customer's loyal to you? And it's not always about price. It isn't about price all the time today, and it won't immediately become price in the future either.
So would you ever personally trust an AI to run your budget, or would you hover over it like a helicopter parent?
We're on an evolution to get there, I think. People trust algorithms more than ever before. So especially with algorithms like TikTok, which seem to understand us so well, we get served ads and products that it's kind of spooky how relevant they are to us. So I think people have over time been exposed to algorithms that can be genuinely useful and relevant. It's far too early to expect anyone to just hand over their budget to an AI agent right now. But I think as time goes by, if these agents can demonstrate that they can do the job, I think it is conceivable that that's where things go.
So you mentioned 87% of U.S. retail media network spend goes to Amazon or Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
Is consolidation inevitable, or is there niche networks that will actually work out?
I think consolidation is inevitable, and it could happen in a couple of different ways. One is, we've seen this in Europe, and there are a couple emerging in the US as well, which is consortiums and federations, where retailers will sort of band together and share the spoils. The thing is, for a media buyer, even at a very large CPG brand, they don't want to be managing dozens of retail media partnerships. They have limited resources, even the very largest ones that are publicly listed. When I speak with them, they might have the budget conceivably to spread around to 50 different retail media networks, but the management oversight of that and the reporting and the media buying plan and checking in on everything, that is far too onerous, and they're just really wanting to spend across half a dozen retail media networks. So if that is happening...
Yeah, it's a bit like babysitting 50 people.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. You need to come up with the plan, spend the money, report on it, and especially as a public company, there's all of these rings to jump through. So if that's happening amongst the largest advertisers, what hope does this retailer with 300 stores that just launched an ad network that I think it's become the flavor of the month in a lot of ways, or seen as an easy way to grab some revenue, or at worst is seen as a way to grab some revenue, but ultimately what happens is it's essentially taking money out of what's called trade budget and reallocating it over to retail media. So you're basically taking a few dollars out of one pocket and putting it into another pocket, and it can kind of look good on your P&L to begin with, but then you realize actually we didn't get any net new incremental dollars at all, and we had to invest in all of these systems and these expensive executives to bring on board. So I think that the chickens will come home to roost in the next few years, and we will see some of these networks consolidating or creating consortiums, or just kind of scaling back to be the minimum viable product of a retail media network.
When someone says to you closed loop measurement, what is your first reaction? Hope, skepticism, or uncontrollable laughter?
Closed loop is an alluring idea, but I think what advertisers have to understand, it's closed loop within that ecosystem. So unless you're actually doing media mix modeling or something like that, some kind of cross retailer brand lift study, you're not able to see what the transaction was outside of that RMN that you advertised on. So if you advertise on Target through Roundel. You cannot see if you got a sale later on at Albertsons, right? They've got no interest in sharing that. Maybe in this consortium model that might happen, but a closed loop sounds cool, but you got to remember it's closed loop within that retailer's ecosystem.
So is anyone actually doing credible measurement? Anyone? Bueller?
Yeah. Well, I will say, look, that's a good, fair point. And I think that the unlikely, I wouldn't say hero, but like an unlikely best practice here is actually Amazon. So back in 2020, they launched their Amazon Marketing Cloud platform, where you can actually upload your own data to the Marketing Cloud and look at crossover audiences. You might also be able to see, like, did our ads on Amazon result in a D2C sale? So you're not able to upload like third-party third-party data that doesn't belong to you, like from another retailer. But if you have a D2C presence, you're actually able to do a lot of that within AMC. So they brought that out and made it sort of accessible to a very large group of advertisers very, very early.
If you could force the industry to adopt one single metric, what would it be, and what sacred cow would you slaughter to make it happen?
I think what a lot of brands want to see is incremental ROAS, and what they're working against there is the ROAS as a standard metric, which is very limited. It can be gamed super easy. So that's certainly one I would like to see the back of, is ROAS. It's easy to, CFOs like it because it's easy to compare across different channels, but because it's so easy to game, I think what most brands really want is some idea of incrementality. That's what they're really after.
Is perfection measurement even desirable?
Is perfection in measurement desirable?
Yeah, or do we secretly need a little fuzziness?
Yes, I think a metric is only as good as it's designed in the system that it operates. And what I hear from a lot of retailers is that data quality may not be exactly where they want it to be. So much of what we're measuring in retail media relies on this customer data that can be interpreted in so many different ways. Like, I have 3 different email addresses. I'm sure you do as well. Everyone has multiple email addresses, maybe multiple phone numbers, addresses, and having an idea of who a customer is and a golden record, that's something it takes investment to set that up correctly and then maybe remediate something that isn't working that well. So a lot of these, that's just one example. A lot of these networks are built on data architecture that isn't ideal, and then they're passing things through to other parties to be cleaned and verified and stuff like that. And it's just, you kind of, when it's not done in the right way, you're building things on a house of sand. So I don't think that perfect measurement is really possible.
So the most fun part of the episode is I get to strand you on an island. You have no dashboards, no Amazon bids, no CPMs, just you and who you bring. Who are you bringing?
I'm bringing MacGyver.
Which one?
Was the old 80s or 90s?
The 80s or 90s guy, or the recent one?
The 80s or 90s guy. Gotta have the OG. He was amazing. I loved MacGyver. So I'm bringing MacGyver as my escape plan. Dr. Peter Attia, the longevity doctor, to sort of help keep everyone's health on track. And Bear Grylls, the survival expert.
Who takes charge first? Bear Grylls?
I'm in charge.
MacGyver or your husband?
I'm in charge, of course. No, I'm in charge.
Why? You're just always in charge?
Feel that there's a lot of strong personalities on this island already.
If you had to teach your son one survival skill from the ad industry,
Ooh.
didn't know there's such a thing, what would it be? Resilience, persuasion, or knowing how to ghost an RFP?
I think actually reinvention. So myself and you and anyone else in this industry, there's these waves of technology and there's so many cycles that we've been through. You have to know how to reinvent yourself. And that's what I think about this whole agentic commerce situation is, if I was a retail media network leader right now, I would be worried but I wouldn't be talking about it. That's exactly what's happening now. But I think that a lot of these people are trying to sort of read the tea leaves and imagine where they might be in 10 years, because it might not look like it does today.
Is it Peter Attia or Attia? I didn't remember.
Attia.
So would Dr. Peter Attia make you run island sprints, or does he finally let you eat coconuts guilt-free?
Coconuts are actually a relatively healthy desert island food.
If you could smuggle one marketing concept onto island to rebuild civilization, what would it be?
Product, price, placement, and promotion.
Why that?
I think it would just make my university marketing professor happy.
A rescue plane spots you, but he demands proof you're actually a marketer. I don't know why they pick either of us up, but for marketers. Do you deliver a keynote about attention metrics using sand diagrams, offer coconut sponsorship deck, or blame your disappearance on one bad attribution?
Definitely blame on bad attribution. That is a hallmark marketer move.
So you built, sold, and now commentate on one of the most chaotic sectors of the advertising. Off the clock, who are you when you're not decoding CPMs? What drives you? Curiosity, frustration, or a need to keep the industry honest? Or just the thrill of watching LinkedIn debates?
Yeah, I complain to people quite often these days that I don't like drama, because I end up getting sort of swept into these arguments and debates on LinkedIn. But I've realized recently that, maybe the problem is me. I think, I think that there's a real benefit to understanding deeply the other side of the argument. If that is internally, you really believe in retail media and you can't comprehend why anyone would ever disagree with that, it is useful to understand why other people might be skeptical or what their arguments might be, because, especially in these larger organizations, you need to be able to argue in a coherent way what your point of view is, and understanding what the other side is talking about and being empathetic to that and really giving them the benefit of the doubt. That is a very helpful activity to go through. So I do think that all of these debates, even though sometimes they might seem silly or pedantic, they actually do serve a really good purpose, and that is to really understand fully a topic.
So you founded and sold a company. What's a mistake you secretly cherish because it taught you everything that you use now?
Yeah, it would definitely be when I started my Amazon marketing agency in 2015, I had no business doing so. I didn't have any Rolodex. I didn't have any experience in that area. I came from banking. I was a complete nobody. And I guess the mistake is sort of expecting that I would be taken seriously in that situation. But what that taught me was the value of creating genuinely useful educational content. And that's what I've been doing ever since. Initially to grow the agency and sort of become a credible player in that ecosystem. And it's certainly what I devote my full-time hours to today.
So you're literally living in a closed-loop measurement world because you're a type 1 diabetic. What have you learned from managing that constant feedback?
That's a really good one. It really helps to put things into perspective for me. So my health is very important to me because I have this sort of like a literal disability. So I'm sort of on the back foot here. And so I do everything that I can to be healthy in every other way. And a lot of that does actually come down to measurement and looking at what are the right ways to measure my health, what kind of tests and markers should I be looking for, and trying to optimize as much as I can against those. There's some things that I will never actually really be able to compete on because my body doesn't work properly. So I think that is actually a really good vignette, like a good example of knowing what to measure and what to move on from and trying to optimize the things that you have control over.
So your superpower is perfect pancreas that you want. What is harder, having to explain glucose spikes or CPM spikes?
I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on the biological explanation, and the CPMs, again, I'd choose the biology over the CPMs.
So hypothetical question, you can only pick one future. A, retail media becomes transparent and efficient. B, agentic commerce coexists peacefully with humans. C, you get that fully functional pancreas. Which one do you choose and why?
Gosh. I think humans and AI coexisting peacefully, that's an
Yeah,
existential
because probably the AI will
wish.
figure out the whole pancreas issue.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, great point. Yep. Save 8
So
billion
last
people.
but not least, when people look back in 10 years, what do they hope, say, you help the industry understand, or more importantly, unlearn?
What I really value beyond the sort of day-to-day, super tactical debates and things like that is I think a lot of people in this industry feel very alone, because if you are heading up retail media at a retailer, you're part of a tiny, tiny percentage of people in the company that isn't focused on selling more widgets. And it's like a very misunderstood part of the organization within a retailer. If you're on the brand side and working in retail media, you're also kind of a bit of a black sheep. And so I think no matter where you sit in the ecosystem, or even on the tech side or agency side, you feel like you feel a little bit different to everyone else in your company and maybe misunderstood. And so that's one thing that I find I really enjoy, is to help people feel less alone in what they're doing.
So now we forced everyone to dance.
Kiri Masters said the quiet part with full volume. Most RMNs don't have the tech, talent, or internal conviction to survive what's coming. If agentic commerce grabs the intent layer, two of retail media's biggest revenue pillars don't wobble, they disappear. What you should have learned today is simple. The duopoly was always the plot. Secrecy was always a warning label. And incrementality is the adulthood retail media has been avoiding. Thanks to Troutman Amin for keeping the legal chaos civilized, and incremental.com for measuring reality instead of fantasy. Stay bold, stay curious, and know more than you did yesterday.